Okay, so now that we know how to find the GCF, we need to learn how to factor out the GCF. And so I would pause this video and write down the three steps. Step one is find the GCF. Step two, you're going to divide it out of all your terms. And then step three, you're going to put that GCF on the outside, and then everything else that's left over is going to be on the inside of those parentheses. So let's take a look at our first example here. So again, if you remember with GCFs, I always start with the smaller one. And so if we think about 8, we have 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And then 12, we know 8 does not go into it, but 4 does. So we know it's 3 and 4 give us 12. So 4 is going to be my GCF there. And then remember with our variables, this has an x to the fourth, and here's an x to the second. And we're always going to take the one that has the smaller exponent. So 4x to the second is going to be my GCF. So that's step one. We found our GCF. Now, step two says to divide it out. So I'm going to take each of these, and we're going to divide these both by 4x to the second. And when we divide that, we're going to be left with something. So the GCF sits on the outside, and then whatever's left, we're going to put on the inside. So if I do 12 and I divide it by 4, I get 3. And then if you remember our properties of exponents, when we divide, we subtract exponents. So 4 minus 2 gives you x to the second power, plus 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 2 minus 2 is nothing. So those x's go away. And so that is your answer. We have factored out the GCF. Let's take a look at some small or larger numbers here. Um, let's see here. We'll do our 28 and 42. So 28, we know 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 does not, 4 and 7, 5 does not, and 6 does not. And so that is our 28. And then if we look at 42, so 42, we know 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 14. And notice, so 28 is not, but notice we have a 14. So 14 is our largest one. So we have 14. And then I have an x to the fifth and an x to the third. So I take the smaller one, x to the third. And then I'm just going to put the parentheses here because I know I'm going to have to now divide each of these by our GCF. So when I take 28 and I divide it by 14, I get 2. And then if I have 5 and I divide out 3 of them, there are 2 left over. And then I carry down my subtraction sign. And then 42 divided by 14 is 3. And then if I have 3 and I take 3 out, then I don't have any more. And so there is your answer. Let's try one more that is a little bit longer. Let's take a look at number 3 here. So we're going to start with our smaller number, and 6 we know is 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. And 12, if we think about 6 as our largest one, that is 2 and 6. And then 30 we know is 5 and 6. So because 6 is our biggest option, that's going to be our GCF. So 6, and then we have a 3, a 5, and a 6. So 3 is the smallest, so we have y to the third power. That's our GCF. And now what we got to do is we got to divide every single one of them by that GCF. And so when I divide it, 6 divided by 6 gives me 1. If I have 3 y's and I take 3 out, I don't have any more, so I don't write any y's. And then I carry my minus sign. 12 divided by 6 is 2. And then 5 minus 3 gives me y to the second. Bring down my plus sign. 30 divided by 6 is 5. And then if I have 6 and I take 3 away, I have 3 left. And that is your answer. So that is how you factor out a GCF out of a polynomial.